want a war, you're gonna get one.
Now get the guns, the drugs from my generation. I'll take the fall, the saints, and across the nation. And it's a sex, the gods, the fakes, the fraud, they're messing with me. Come on, come on, come on. Let's get it out. Move to the music, play that fucking music. Live through my music, yeah.
Here we are, episode 66 of Reliving the War. It's the 13th of January 1997. The WWF show a taped episode of Raw from Albany, New York, while WCW is live tonight from the New Orleans Superdome in Louisiana. We are days away from the 1997 Royal Rumble, where Sycho Sid defends his WWF Championship against Shawn Michaels. And just like the previous few pay-per-views, I'll cover the 1997 Royal Rumble in its own dedicated video. So if you don't want to miss out, and if you want to help out the channel a bit, please hit the subscribe button. Let's check out the first 60 minutes of Monday Nitro before we compare both shows. Nitro kicks off with the Giant busting into the NWO's locker room. Giant screams that he wants his title shot and he calls Hulk Hogan a coward for what happened last week. The NWO try to hold Giant back, and security has to come in to remove him from the dressing room. Remember how Hogan promised to give the Giant a title shot at Sold Out? Well, Hogan changed his mind and the match has been called off. Chavo Guerrero defeated JL in our opening match with a moonsault, and what you'll notice during this bout is that this live audience in New Orleans is absolutely pumped up for this episode of Nitro. It's an incredible crowd in attendance. Jim Duggan vs Super Colo was supposed to take place next. Duggan cuts a promo with Mean Gene Okerlund before his match where he sends a message to Sting. Duggan says the Stinger needs to be a man and tell the fans if he's WCW or if he's NWO. Colo's music plays in the Superdome, but Sting appears from the audience. Hacksaw takes a Scorpion Death Drop and the match doesn't take place. Sting's actions make Larry Zbyszko believe that the Icon is part of the New World Order. We move quickly onto our next match, Sergeant Craig Pittman vs Chris Jericho. Chris picks up the win after delivering a missile dropkick, a 70-second match that makes you wonder why it was even booked. High Voltage vs Harlem Heat is our next matchup, but a minute or so into the bout, we see the Giant again trying to get his hands on Hulk Hogan. Giant again gets escorted out as Bischoff and Hogan laugh in the corner of the room. Bischoff says the Giant doesn't understand that he can't have a title match without a contract. Harlem Heat defeated High Voltage, by the way. Kenny Chaos takes a heat seeker at the end of the bout. Bischoff, Vincent and Ted DiBiase took over the commentary table for our next match. Diamond Dallas Page vs Marc Starr. And just before the match, we see a short video that shows Sting going after different WCW superstars. DDP defeated Starr with a running diamond cutter. Again, the match wasn't that long, but it's worth watching for the diamond cutter alone. More important was the stuff that happened after the bout. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash comes out and they have an NWO shirt for Dallas. It was decision time for DDP. Kevin Nash gives DDP a big hug and Dallas puts on the shirt. And that's it, folks. That's how DDP joined the NWO, and that's how his meteoric rise to the top ended in just one night.
No, that's not how it happened. This is how it happened. I was fed up with how I was being booked in WCW at the time. So I really came up with all my own ideas, but this one was one that could really change my life. And I knew if I brought it to the booking committee, they would have never done it. But I brought it to Kevin and Scott. And first I brought it to Kev, and I was like, listen, I have this idea, bro. If you guys don't want to do it, I totally understand. But if you do, it could really help elevate me and change, what the bookers have to do with me. I said, or we don't do it. I'm just going to ask for my release to go to New York. And he was like, so what's the idea? And I tell him, we have a real relationship. We used to be tag team partners. Scott, I used to manage him. I created his gimmick, gave him the toothpick, all that shit. I said, we have real history. I said, what if you guys came up to me and asked me be in the NWO? And I look at you and I go, oh, now you want me in the NWO? Like, because my diamond cutter is the greatest finisher on the planet? Now you want me in the NWO? What happened number 3 or 4 or 5 or now 6, 7, you're coming for me? How about no? And I walk away. Now normally you just kill me, but it's me. It's not one of these other schmucks. Like, we got real history. Oh, Dally, no, he'll get over it. That's like your attitude. Then it happens again. And I do the same thing. And they're like, oh, God, he's so annoying. You know, that's your attitude, right? And you let it go again. I have a match. I hit someone with a diamond cutter. You guys come in, you give me the shirt. I put it on. You hug me. You walk away. Scott friggin' high fives me. When he goes to pull away, I pull him in. Bang. You come running at me, I flip you over the top rope, and I take off through the crowd. And he goes, oh, I love it. He goes, I'm gonna take the diamond cutter too. I go, no, you're not. If Bischoff lets it do this at all, he's never gonna let you take the cutter too. I said, let's just pitch it the way that is right there. He goes, yeah, go tell Eric. I go, I can't tell Eric. I go, dude, I'm gonna tell Eric I wanna drop both you guys. I go, first I gotta go ask Scott. He goes, D, you got him a job. You created his look. He needed the job more than anything. His wife was pregnant with Cody, and you don't think he wants to repay you. You know, without that, none of this shit's happening. He said, he'll be good with it. Just go tell Eric. I go, I'm not telling Eric. I got to ask Scott first. So I went up to Scott, and Scott's like, oh, I love it. It's great. Let's do it. Go tell Eric. I go, I'm not telling Eric shit. I said, so the bottom line is Kevin tells him the idea. And Bish, it's not that he didn't want to help me, but this is a really big deal, dropping those two guys. And bottom line is that he sort of ham-hearted a little bit. You know, all right, let me run it by him. You know, because I saw the booking committee. I think he was in control at that point, but I'm not sure. And they ran it by him, and they all decided to do it. So we go to do it. I'm so psyched. This is going to be so amazing. It's in Charlotte, North Carolina. And the bookers come up to me, and they tell me, with Eric, listen, this Piper's coming in tonight. You got the bagpipes, you got the whole deal. We don't want it to get lost in the shuffle. I think we should put it off till next week. I was like, fine. Cool, next week works. And then it turned into next week. And next week. And next week. You should count them to see how many actual weeks there are. All I know is there was week after week after week that it was on TV sheets and then it got pulled off. It just was wearing me out. I literally was about to ask for my release. And then I heard we're doing it in front of 33,000 in our first dome show in New Orleans at the Superdome. Now, it felt like I was really getting jerked around, you know, and they weren't going to let me do it because once I did that, it changed my life. It set up the thing where Randy Savage wanted to work with me, and then Savage put me over, and that changed my life in a way that I can't even explain to you. It's so ridiculous how different my life became. It just elevated me to a different stature that I would have the rest of my life. We'd get the feud of the year that year. And the reality was, when they kept pushing it back, it was the best thing ever happened to me. Because it took like, whatever it was, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks to do this angle about me and the NWO. So when I finally did put the shirt on, it sucked the air out of the building. You know, there was fans of NWO, so they were cheering. The other people were like, no, not you. And then when I friggin' dropped Scott, that roof exploded. Backdrop Kevin over the top rope. Man, that was the craziest moment up till that point in my life. And like I said, it changed my life. So that's how it really went down. See ya.
A big thank you to Diamond Dallas Page for appearing on Reliving the War. Dallas done this as a favour simply because he enjoys the show. This wasn't a paid cameo or anything like that, so the least I can do is ask you guys to check out his YouTube channel and the DDPY app. All the links are in the video description. Again, a big thanks to Diamond Dallas Page. Next we get a pre-taped NWO promo featuring The Outsiders, and it's announced through this promo that Hall and Nash will defend their tag team titles at Sold Out against the Steiner Brothers. Dean Malenko and Eddie Guerrero had a match next, and Six decided to show up, watching the match from a ladder in the audience. Guerrero gets distracted by his Sold Out opponent, and this leads to Malenko hitting a powerbomb for the win. During this match, the WCW committee decided that Hulk Hogan would face the Giant tonight in our main event, so Giant vs Hogan is going to be the final match of the evening. Super Colo thought he had the night off, but he ends up having a match with Conan. Conan got the win with his 187 Cradle DDT. This looked pretty good. Unopposed point goes to Nitro this week. There's no argument here. Nitro's first 60 minutes was some of the best stuff they've done for a long time. Raw kicks off with some rando getting Shawn Michaels to sign his underwear over in San Antonio. The guy tells Shawn he can't wait to be alone with his baby tonight, and HBK seems to like it. Triple H and Jerry Lawler are going to face Marc, Mero and Goldust in our opening match, while Jeff Jarrett takes on Chris Benoit on Monday Nitro. Goldust isn't in the mood for theatrics tonight. He and Mero bring the fight to Hunter and Lawler right at the opening bell. The babyfaces clear out the ring, and after a little debate, we end up with Lawler and Mero inside the ropes. Jerry takes a back body drop and he instantly wants to tag out. The King builds up a little courage and he suckers Mero in with a test of strength. Mero takes a right hand, it has no effect, and when the Wild Man floors Jerry with a right, Vince McMahon says, "Shades of Sugar Ray Leonard." Whatever you say, Vince. Oh, I forgot to mention, Honky Tonk Man is providing commentary. His talent search continues, and get used to this thing too because it doesn't get resolved for another 3 months or so. Lawler tries to give Hunter a free shot, but Triple H hits Jerry and the King falls on poor referee Jack Doan. You can see this hurt him too when he hobbles back to the corner with Goldust. Lawler finally tags in Hunter and Goldust comes rushing in to attack Triple H. The referee has to again stop Goldust from trying to interfere. Goldust is almost being a detriment to his team here. Mero takes a little punishment in the corner, but a back body drop gives Mero a chance to tag in his partner. Hunter runs away and the King comes back into the match. Goldust makes quick work of the King. He rushes to the outside to attack Hunter, and then he tags Mero back into the match. Goldust was almost getting himself disqualified beforehand due to his eagerness to get into the ring, so why he tags out is anyone's guess. Maybe he's saving himself for Hunter. The King tags in Hunter while in a side headlock, and this leads to Lawler and Hunter getting in some cheap shots in the corner. Mero takes a back elbow from Hunter before Lawler comes back in to hit a suplex. Lawler misses a fist drop. Goldust comes back in and Hunter refuses to tag Lawler. Jerry again tries to find Hunter after taking a clothesline, but Triple H wants nothing to do with Goldust. Hunter does tag in though when Mero is in the ring. The Wild Man takes a beating on the outside while the referee is distracted, and all this excitement is too much for the King. He puts his hands down his pants and he begins never mind. The King hits Mero with a concealed weapon on the outside just before we go to commercial break. Mero hits a head scissors on Triple H and Goldust gets tagged in. Goldust rushes at Helmsley and there's a decent crowd response to Goldust finally getting his hands on Triple H. Hunter takes a beating here. He ends up getting tied up between the top and middle ropes and Goldust begins choking his Royal Rumble opponent. Lawler and the referee can't stop Goldust here and the referee calls for a disqualification. Look at Mero here. He tries to stop Goldust but he ends up getting punched in the face 3 times instead. And then he doesn't do anything at all to retaliate except widen his eyes. After coming off that first 60 minutes of Nitro, this match felt like a huge downgrade. Benoit vs Jarrett is a Starrcade 96 rematch, and this one should be interesting, seeing as Jarrett has this odd relationship with the Four Horsemen. Kevin Sullivan cuts a promo during Benoit's entrance where he says next week he won't play chess with Chris Benoit. The Taskmaster owns the board and he's taking it back. Note to self, don't play chess with Kevin Sullivan because he's a sore loser. Look at this. The match begins and the commentators are absolutely buzzing that Hogan's wrestling the Giant tonight on Nitro. Benoit gets the better of Jarrett as the crowd breaks out in a loud "Jarrett sucks" chant. The fake Double J then trips up Benoit before performing his strut, and again the crowd gives Double F quite the hostile reaction. Waistlock counters lead to Jarrett going to the ropes for a break, but the crowd have stood up and they're looking up to the entranceway. The camera's cut and out comes Double A, Deborah, Mongo and his magical briefcase. Jarrett lands a snap suplex, but Chris comes right back with a clothesline. Chris then gets vicious with a few knee strikes, but the back and forth action continues, with Jarrett nailing a clothesline in the corner before hitting a reverse teabag attack while Benoit was draped on the middle ropes. I never know what to call this move and so many superstars do it, so yeah, it's now the reverse teabag. Jarrett pulls off a good looking stun gun, but it only gets 2. Jarrett then lands a neckbreaker, and Arn Anderson jumps on the rope when Double A goes for the figure 4. With the referee distracted, Mongo grabs Jarrett while standing on the outside, but Deborah does not want to hand over the magical briefcase. Remember, she seems to like Double J while Big Mongo thinks he's a complete dickhead. While Steve tries to get the briefcase, Benoit ends up against the ropes. Mongo finally takes control of his weapon of choice, but he ends up nailing Benoit. Jarrett pins Chris and the fake Double J wins via pinfall. Anderson argues with Mongo while Deborah looks pleased with this outcome. Woman tells Chris what happened and how Deborah got involved, and so the problems within the Four Horsemen continue on WCW programming. Based on the match itself, I'm going with Raw here, not a lot happening inside the ring on Nitro. Both matches weren't great, but you get more with Raw's opening contest. After the Nitro match, we get a Horseman promo and Benoit wants to sort this mess out before going backstage. Chris says Mongo fumbled the ball tonight and that's not what the Horsemen are all about. Chris says he himself was picked by Double A to be a Horseman while Mongo got selected due to circumstance. Chris then tells Deborah that Nancy is all woman, there's no silicone and nothing is fake. This makes McMichael jump in and Steve apologises for what happened at the end of the match. Benoit wants to know where Flair is and Double A says the Nature Boy wants nothing to do with this personal stuff. And so Chris turns his attention back to Mongo and he tells Steve to get his act together or leave the group. Deborah says she loves Chris and Nancy and she wouldn't do anything to hurt them, obviously talking a whole lot of shit here. And Mongo says he was man enough to apologise to Chris, but if Chris wants to fight, well that's an option too. Double A gets in between Chris and Steve, Mongo leaves, Benoit leaves after telling Anderson that he needs to resolve these problems, and Double A isn't happy at all that this is all left for him to sort out while he has a match tonight with Rick Steiner. Sycho Sid and Shawn Michaels have pre-recorded interviews next from San Antonio while Billy Kidman takes on former American male Scotty Riggs. Sid's in the Alamo Dome and he loosely quotes Friedrich Nietzsche by saying, "In the act of fighting monsters, in the procedure, be sure that you don't become a monster yourself." So we've went from kick or be kicking to quoting German philosophers. How can you not like Sycho Sid? Sid says he'll have to be the monster to take what's his, to walk out of the Alamo Dome as WWF champion. Sid says he'll grab Shawn by the throat and Shawn will give him a look that Shawn's mother will know, a look that Jose Lothario will know, a look that Shawn's friends and family will all know. The person at the highest seat in the arena will know the look. The look will say it all. Shawn will look at his opponent knowing that Sid is the master and ruler of the world. This was definitely one of Sid's better promos. Check this one out when you get a chance. HBK is at a bar in San Antonio, how fitting, and we get to see a few replays of Sid attacking Jose at Survivor Series and Hose B last week on Raw. Shawn says Sid is right, there will be a monster appearing at the Royal Rumble and that's going to be the Heartbreak Kid. Shawn may not be as big of a monster as Sid, but no one can dig deep like HBK. We've got fans kissing in the background because this sure is one of those times when a public display of affection is needed. Look at how this guy looks at the camera after kissing his bird, by the way. We all know what that look is. She may be his girlfriend now, but tomorrow, Horseman business, brother. Anyway, Shawn bangs on about the people of Texas, how Shawn's going to kick Sid's teeth down his throat, and that's what San Antonio is all about. And check this out, Shawn says he's all man, and then he says this.
I'm all man, and believe me, at least, a yard wide, if you know what I'm talking about.
Is Shawn saying here that his little degenerate is actually a yard wide? Not a yard long, but a yard wide? That would look a little weird, wouldn't it? Shawn says his family and friends will be in attendance, and Sid's going to be very unpopular at the Rumble. This Sunday, Sid may still leave the Rumble as the Master and the Ruler, but he won't leave as WWF Champion. Vince wonders how Shawn would feel if he lets everyone down in the Alamo Dome, and Shawn says he delivers better than the post office. HBK won't let anyone down at the Royal Rumble, and nobody can work as hard as Shawn Michaels. Two good promos here, with Sid's being the standout, for me anyway. Scotty Riggs starts his match off with Billy Kidman by delivering a body slam followed by a dropkick. An arm drag then gets followed up with an arm bar, and the commentators do not care at all. Schiavone tells fans to call their friends and let them know that the Giant faces Hulk Hogan tonight on TNT. Kidman gets out of the arm bar and he performs a head scissors. He then does the same arm drag and arm bar spot as Riggs, and Scotty gets out with a forearm to the face. Kidman gets thrown into the air and he crashes on the mat. Riggs keeps the pressure on inside the ropes, but then we see Marcus Bagwell standing at the entranceway wearing a new coat. Kidman hits a sweet dropkick before the cameras go back on Bagwell. Marcus says Riggs will never learn. Scotty Riggs is fat and Marcus is buff. Kidman then misses a 450 splash and the landing does look pretty rough. Scotty then lands a fisherman's suplex to score the pinfall win. Schiavone says Riggs is going to name this move the Ameriplex. Bagwell again talks to the fans at home from the entranceway, saying that Scotty Riggs is number 2 and Marcus is buff. This was the official renaming of Marcus Bagwell. Say hello to Buff Bagwell. Going with Raw again here. Good action inside the ring on Nitro, but the promos I felt were more entertaining. 2 Nitro matches going up against 1 Raw match. Keep that in mind too guys when we look at the final results screen, because I've seen some people get confused about that. But anyway, we have Lex Luger versus Rick Fuller and Arn Anderson versus Rick Steiner on Nitro. And we have Rocky Maivia versus Davey Boy Smith on Raw. Bret Hart comes out to commentate on the Bulldog versus Maivia match, though it looks like he's going for a game of snooker. He's also got a limp thanks to Stone Cold Pillmanizing the Hitman the day before on Superstars. During Rocky's entrance, Bret says that Maivia shows more promise than any other superstar he's seen come into the World Wrestling Federation. Rocky Maivia is going to be phenomenal. Yeah right, this chump is going to end up without a job very soon. Davey Boy pushes Rocky away and he celebrates afterwards. Well done, Davey. Bret Hart talks about getting revenge on Steve Austin, and the Hitman talks about how the WWF is a land without law. He continues to promote the Royal Rumble match as Rocky grabs a side headlock inside the ropes. Maivia then delivers a hip toss, an arm drag, and he applies an arm bar as Bret puts Rocky Johnson and Peter Maivia over on commentary. Bret tells Vince to ask Stu Hart about just how tough Peter Maivia was. Davey with a side headlock. Rocky takes a shoulder block but he kips up afterwards. Rocky delivers another hip toss and he follows up with a dropkick. Honestly, the dropkick is something Rocky could have taken out of his moveset early on because his dropkicks didn't look all that great. Davey then remembers that he forgot to turn off his Super Nintendo back in England, so he goes to leave the match, but Clarence Mason tells him it's okay, he'll phone Davey's mom and she'll turn it off. Rocky begins working over Davey's wrist back inside the ropes as Owen Hart comes down to ringside. The King of Hearts puts his Slammy Award on the announce table and he stands right in front of Bret, blocking the Hitman's view of the match of the year. How Owen stood there while staring at Bret without laughing is beyond me, but Owen stays put throughout a commercial break. We come back and he hasn't moved a muscle. Maivia lands a sunset flip but Davey kicks out at 2. Davey then lands a clothesline and...
Davey Boy Smith chinlock.
I know it's supposed to be 3 strikes, but Davey is now the exception. Haven't done that in a while. Owen continues to make Bret feel awkward at the announce table, and the Hitman says he's just waiting for Owen to make a move. Maivia fights out of the chin lock and he goes on to hit a flying crossbody. It only scores him a 2 count. Davey gets up and he replies with a vertical suplex and a leg drop. Rocky gets out of 2, and so it's time for another
Davey Boy Smith chin lock.
Rocky gets up and he delivers that signature punch, and can we take a moment to appreciate Rocky's sick moves afterwards? Rock continues to build momentum and he hits a clothesline that sends both he and Davey over the top rope. After taking care of Rocky on the outside, the Bulldog ends up getting chopped down by Steve Austin, and Davey also takes a stunner. Bret tries to tell Owen what's going on, and the two Hearts end up chasing Austin back up the ramp, but the damage has been done. Rocky gets back into the ring and he wins via countout. A decent matchup here, it was okay. The commentators on Nitro are still very excited about the Hogan vs Giant match that's going to take place in the main event, but it's also announced here that Hogan's WCW Championship will not be on the line. If you didn't think Lex Luger was over in WCW, then check out this match here against Rick Fuller. The audience can't stop chanting for Lex, and he gets one of the best crowd reactions of the night. This is Fuller's debut WCW match, by the way. He'd stay as an undercard guy throughout his whole WCW tenure right up until the year 2000. Lex applies a headlock, he gets thrown into the ropes, and his rebound shoulder block doesn't move Rick at all. Luger manages to bring Fuller down with a hip toss, and Rick runs to the corner after pushing Lex beforehand. Fuller then manages to nail a clothesline on the total package and a leg drop. Rick then begins targeting Luger's arm, and Lex takes a few knife-edge chops in the corner, but that's about all Rick will do in this matchup. Lex begins firing up and the crowd lose their minds after Lex nails a few clotheslines. Luger then signals for the torture rack and it's all over. Marc Curtis, man, he was such a great and animated referee. The incredible crowd reaction for Luger makes this one worth watching for sure. It's very short though, and don't be expecting a technical masterpiece. Immediately after the match, the Giant comes down to the ring. Luger and the Giant stare at each other, and there seems to be some respect shown here. Giant walks down to the ring and Mean Gene Okerlund gets a few words from the big man. Giant says tonight isn't about the NWO, it isn't about WCW, it's about Hulk Hogan versus the Giant. Giant says he wants the WCW Championship badly, even though the belt isn't on the line. He will no longer be a bookend that keeps the NWO together. The book has started falling apart, and the Giant is going to close the chapter on Hulkamania forever. We then get a very quick match between Rick Steiner and Arn Anderson. Scotty Steiner lets Rick off his lead during the entrances, and here we go. Anderson gets the better of Steiner after a fireman's carry. Anderson continues the lead by bringing Steiner to the corner, and the Enforcer performs a back elbow after getting Irish whipped to the opposite turnbuckles, but then Steiner surprises Arn with a fantastic overhead belly to belly. Arn then rolls out of the ring and he calls for the Horsemen, but no one shows up. Anderson gets back into the ropes and Tony Schiavone announces that footage of Hogan versus the Giant will get shown to audiences during TNT's commercial breaks. The New Adventures of Robin Hood will premiere tonight after Nitro, and WCW might have to cut away, so TNT has agreed to show Nitro while advertisements play also. I love this stuff. It made it feel like the main event was very important, but we'll talk about that a little later. Steiner catches Arn in mid-air and Double A gets slammed to the mat. Arn replies with an elbow to the back of Steiner's head. Rick counters the DDT with a suplex, and Arn again shouts for the Horsemen to come down to ringside. Steiner clotheslines Arn over the top rope as Mike Tenay announces that the Horsemen are locked inside their dressing room and they're all screaming at each other. Anderson still calls out for his teammates, but no one shows up. And this leads to a count-out victory for Rick Steiner, and it leads to a lot of fans in attendance getting disappointed with the finish. The Steiners address the outsiders before our main events. Scott says he isn't hurt anymore and he's gonna, quote, jam his fist down Scott Hall's throat and rip his goozle out. Scott continues the interview by saying Nash would be more effective in a basketball match, but there's no basketball court, it's sold out. The Nitro bumper music then begins to play as someone clearly wanted to get Scott away from that microphone.
Be an advantage if we were playing him in basketball. By at the NWO pay-per-view.
I'm going with WCW again here. The stuff happening on Nitro felt more exciting in comparison to Bulldog versus Maivia. We made it to the end of a long Reliving the War, so congratulations if you made it this far.
Congratulations!
Congratulations.
Undertaker versus Crush on Raw, Hollywood Hogan versus The Giant on Nitro. The Nation of Domination are backstage before the match, and Vince says the Nation will get divided inside the Royal Rumble. Farouk disagrees. He says to form a unified nation you have to stick together, and that's what the Nation will do this Sunday. Regarding tonight's main event, Crush says he'll do whatever it takes by any means necessary, and the Nation will dominate. I'm sure. McMahon announces that The Undertaker vs Vader is official for this week's Royal Rumble pay-per-view as the dead man makes his way down to the ring. Undertaker attacks the whole nation during Crush's entrance, and our match begins with The Undertaker overcoming Crush's offense and hitting a DDT. Taker hits a power slam and he follows up with a leg drop. Crush gets thrown into the corner and the dead man lands a clothesline. Undertaker then goes for old school, but Farouk shakes the ropes and Taker's little creature of the night takes all the impact. Still, the Phenom manages to dump Crush over the top rope. Taker tries to pull Crush back into the ring from the apron, but Crush drops Taker over the top rope. This lets Crush briefly go on offense, but it doesn't last long. The dead man floors the jailbird once again, this time with another clothesline. Crush comes back with a pile driver. Taker gets draped over the apron and he takes a few shots to the head. The fight spills to the outside where Crush manages to stay on offense. Undertaker takes a beating here before the match gets back inside the ropes. Then we see Vader standing at the entranceway just before we cut to commercial break. The Undertaker tries to fight back when the commercials end, but Crush keeps the Phenom at bay with strikes. Vince McMahon does some last minute promotion for the Royal Rumble as Crush lands a clothesline. The match slows way down when Crush brings it to the mat, and a backbreaker to the dead man fails to get the crowd excited at all. These past 5 minutes have felt like an absolute eternity. Finally, the dead man sits up and Crush misses a fist drop. Taker lands a right hand before delivering his signature jumping clothesline. Taker then tries to finish it with a tombstone, but Crush counters with a belly to belly. Crush then signals for the hard punch, but Taker counters it with one of the worst choke slams you'll ever see, and then the Nation hit the ring and Earl Hebner calls for the bell. Vader hits the ring too. Taker takes a beating before Vader lands a Vader bomb, and look, the Undertaker flips someone off after taking the move. I bet it was the Honky Tonk Man. Ahmed Johnson runs down for the save, but it's no use. Raw goes off the air with Farouk beating Ahmed with his own 2x4. The main event of Raw this week, put simply, was not good. It could be easily argued that WCW done a better job of building up this main event here in comparison to how the WWF built up their entire Royal Rumble pay-per-view. Schiavone continues to talk about TNT bending the rules in order to show this match to fans at home uninterrupted, and again, this does make the match feel like a big deal. What was really going on here was TNT using the popularity of WCW to try and get viewers to watch other shows on the channel. Footage of this match was split up and played during not just one commercial break, but multiple commercial breaks. Hogan takes his time coming to the ring for what will be his first match on Nitro in around 9 months. The Giant then makes his entrance and Hogan immediately runs away from his opponent. Hulk grabs a microphone and he begins mocking the Giant. The Hulkster says he used the Giant and he doesn't need him anymore, and there's no piece of paper that says Hulk has to wrestle tonight. Hogan got too close to the ring because the Giant lifts up the Hulkster and a body slam gets delivered in the ring. Hogan's promo beforehand gave the slam a whole lot more impact. The bell rings and the Giant bashes Hogan's head on the top turnbuckles. The commentators remind fans to stay with TNT as Hogan gets beat so badly that he has to take a timeout. Hogan tries to leave the arena, but Giant grabs him and Hogan gets tossed back into the ring. Nitro then officially ends, but the match continues during commercials. Hogan gets brought to the corner where he takes 2 knife-edge chops. The Giant then lands a clothesline, and Hulk then thinks he's being smart by hitting his opponent with a low blow. Only problem here is the Giant has no balls, and so Hogan's attack is ineffective. Hogan pulls Pee Wee Anderson in front of him, but Hulk quickly realizes he can't hide forever, so Hogan tries to overpower the Giant with a test of strength. Not only does Giant overpower Hogan, but Hulk gets his own bandana stuffed in his mouth. TNT then cuts over to the new adventures of Robin Hood again, and fans would need to wait it out to see the conclusion. We come back, Hogan gets body slammed, Giant signals for the chokeslam, and the crowd go crazy. Hogan breaks the chokeslam position by kicking the big man and poking the Giant in the eye, but Giant keeps coming back by wrapping his huge hand around Hogan's throat. We think Hogan's gonna take the bump, but here comes the NWO to cause a DQ finish. The Giant does well to fight off the New World Order, but Hogan leaves the match. He shouts "I quit" before walking back up the entranceway. Carrying this main event through another television program would have been annoying for a lot of fans, but it was also quite innovative. WCW effectively being owned by the network that they were on allowed them to do things like this, and while it was all about making people watch Robin Hood robbing from the rich in between a Hulk Hogan match, it was still a landmark moment when we think about the evolution of wrestling broadcasts. Was the match good? No. Was the Undertaker vs Crush match good? No. But Nitro's finale is definitely more interesting for those studying the Monday Night War when it comes to how content was delivered. For that reason, I'm giving Nitro the final point. WCW Nitro was simply a better show this week, and it's crazy how the WWF could put on such a mediocre broadcast mere days before the 1997 Royal Rumble. Shotgun Saturday Night later in the week was way more interesting. Nitro in many ways felt like a pay-per-view with the big arena, the big crowd, DDP making his decision in the Hogan main event. Our overall scores are now 22 points to Raw, 34 points to Nitro, and we've had 10 ties. In the television ratings, both shows showed improvement, a 2.3 for Raw and a 3.4 for Monday Nitro. Next up on Reliving the War is the 1997 Royal Rumble review. We'll take a look at every match on the show along with an in-depth look at the Royal Rumble itself. If you want to see it a little early, and if you want to see Reliving the War episode 67 a little early, then head over to Patreon and you can watch both videos right now. Again, a big shout out to Diamond Dallas Page for coming onto the show and giving insight into his segment on Nitro. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this extended episode of Reliving the War, and take care.